Please give it up for Peter. Saran, Peter.
Hi. I started going to therapy recently. I don't know if anybody here likes therapy. It messed me up, I'm going to be honest with you. I had to go in the first day and I had to fill out like a medical form. And under occupation, I put comedian. And with a huge smile on my face, I gave it back to the receptionist. And then she crossed out comedian and checkmarked unemployed. I was like, yo, when does this therapy begin? Because I definitely have something to talk about now. That was unnecessary. And my family's Indian and I'm Indian. I guess the first part implied that second part, actually. They hate that I go to therapy. They think I'm snitching on the family. They think I'm telling our secrets. My cousin came up to me the other day. He's like, are you wearing a wire? I'm like, that's not how that works at all. And my grandma, she hates it the most. She's a small Indian woman. She's from the old country. And when I told her for the first time I went to therapy, she looked me in my face and she was like, you can talk to me? And I was like, but you're the problem. Why would I go directly to the problem? And don't get me wrong, I love my grandma, man. But every time I see her, she calls me fat and then gets mad when I don't eat her Indian food. Like, why are you gaslighting me right now? Her Indian food's awesome. It's so good. It gives you that kind of diabetes you're not born with, you know? The one you have to earn. Her food's so messed up, it gave my uncle the gout. You know how messed up your food has to be? That every time he eats it, something in his foot activates and he has to sit down for a very long time? And she gets mad every time he comes around. She's like, you're not going to eat my food? He's like, I have the gout. And she's like, walk it off. He's like, I literally can't do that. And don't get me wrong, my grandma's awesome because she tries. She doesn't have to try with her grandchildren. Like recently, my sister came out of the closet and my grandma didn't know what to do with this information. She came up to me. She's like, I don't know how to talk to her anymore. And I was like, you were doing pretty good yesterday before you found out about trying that. And then she got mad. She's like, no, Peter, I have to get stronger. And I was like, I don't think that's what you meant at all. And then she left. And now I have to assume she went to the mountains to do a training montage or something. But instead of like talking to family and friends to figure out this problem, she went to a random WhatsApp group chat with like 5 other women that thought just like her. We're like, oh, she's come back radicalized. And then she showed up one day and she's like, I learned something. And we're like, oh, what did you learn? She's like, I learned that sexuality is fluid. And we're like, all right, grandma, that's dope. And then we realized she didn't know what that meant at all. Because the next time she saw my sister, she went up to my sister and she was like, are you still gay? And we're like, that's not how that works. That's not an on and off switch. You just can't do that. And then she kept doing it. She kept asking my sister the same question every time she saw her. And my sister would just have to be like, yes, I still am. After a while, we were hoping she had dementia or something. But what none of us knew at the time was this was like her way of getting close to my sister. Because when she asked the question, it felt like, oh, I can comfort her either answer. But we're not psychos, so we didn't know that. So my mom felt like she had to step in and be like, you got to stop saying this. You're making everybody uncomfortable. This feels wrong. And when most people hear this, they're like, yeah, it does feel wrong. I should stop. My grandma heard this. She was like, okay, challenge accepted. So she tried to find different ways to say it to my sister without actually saying it. So the next time she saw my sister, she went up to her. She's like, are you still beating around the bush? And we're like, all right, grandma, I guess you get it. I don't know. I'm actually from Brampton. I don't know if anybody here has been to Brampton, but the best way to describe my hometown, like our main import is Indian cousins. And our main export is white people. That's why I'm here. Actually, I'm taking one of you back with me. We need you. The property value is down right now. Please come back. It was hard growing up. It wasn't a safe place. Like, when I grew up in the early 2000s, and when I was in grade 3, the school I went to, they decided to ban peanuts. But the way they did it was in the most messed up way they possibly could. They made one kid stand in front of the whole class. And they were like, Mandeep here is deathly allergic to peanuts. So don't feed Mandeep peanuts because he will die. And most kids would be like, oh, that sucks. I'm so sorry, Mandeep. We were like, Mandeep better keep his bitch ass in line, you know? Better not catch him slipping. And the reason we were like this towards Mandeep was because Mandeep was a bully. And Mandeep learned a very important lesson that day. That you can't be a bully with a food allergy. You just can't. How to get you every single time. And he bullied all of us, but he bullied this one kid relentlessly. His name, also Mandeep. But we called him Mun Square, better him than us situation. And I guess after a while, Mun Square just had enough of the bullying because he showed up to class one day and he was like, Mandeep, I'm going to kick your ass after school today. And Mandeep was just like, I'm going to kill you. And that was the end of that conversation. Just 20 kids standing there being like, well, I guess we're going to see a death today. Okay. All right. And so after school, we all gathered around and Mandeep, Mun Square in the middle of it. And at first, it felt like we should have told an adult, somebody who could have done something about this. But this was like before YouTube, so we just want to see kid-on-kid violence. So we let it escalate. But what none of us knew at the time, Mun Square had been scheming. Because as the fight started, Mun Square, we don't know why he did this, but he had a friend behind him pull out a chocolate bar and then give him the chocolate bar. And then Mun Square stabbed Mandeep in the face with it. And Mandeep went down. And Mun Square was like, oh, Henry says hi. And we were shook. Biggest upset any of us had seen in our lifetime up until that point. And so when we were quiet in that moment, Mun Square was like, it's my time to give a speech. So as he's holding this mangled chocolate bar, he looks down at Mandeep and he's like, Mandeep, that was for every time you hit me. That was for every time you told me I couldn't do something. Well, here's something you can't do. And then he ate the chocolate bar. And we all lost our minds. We were so ravenous, we started cheering Mun Square's name. We're like, Mun Square, Mun Square, Mun Square. And as Mun Square stood over his vanquished foe, he turned around, looked us all in our eyes, into our souls. And his only response to us cheering his name was, I'm Mandeep now. We're like, fuck yeah, you are, dog. You earned that. You earned that. You know what I like about that joke? Nobody ever cares about the kid that almost died. Ever? You guys are like, let's run that back. Let's run that back right now. I have young parents. My mom had me so young that she was really into the Harry Potter movies. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's watched these movies, but I hate them. Every time my mom would make me watch those movies, I'd be like, yo, I hope that albino with no nose kills this teenager. I just can't. Why are these movies in parts? My mom was so into Harry Potter, she joined a real-life Quidditch league. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's been a kid and found out their mom's favorite activity is just running around with brooms between her legs. I could probably rephrase that better. Now, if you don't know, Quidditch is a sport within Harry Potter, but the only thing that really matters about that sport is that they play it on flying brooms. So one day, one guy was like, let's bring this to real life. So it went from being something kind of cool to it being a bunch of adults playing horsey. That's what... And my mom loved this sport. She wanted everybody in the family to come. Nobody wanted to come. I had to come because I was forced to, So after a while, my mom's like, we got to start tricking family members. So I remember we picked up a cousin from prison and we took him straight to the Quidditch game. This guy thought he was going to get out on his first day. He was going to eat his favorite food, maybe hug his mom. Nah, you got to watch my mom try her best. That's all. And he was pissed too. Yeah, I could feel it. He was angry. So I was like, maybe if I start cheering, maybe he'll get into the game. And at the time, my mom's position on the team was to chase after a guy they named a golden snitch. Now, if you don't know what a golden snitch is, it's a golden ball with wings on it that flies around. And if you catch it, you win. So what they made this poor dude do was wear a gold helmet with wings on it and a yellow tracksuit that said snitch on the back, like we didn't know who the fuck this guy was. And so I'm sitting there. I'm like, yo, if I start cheering, it'll probably be better. So I stood up and I was like, yo, ma, get that golden snitch. And something in my cousin snapped because he stood up and he's like, yeah, stab that snitch. I was like, no, that's not how that. Calm down, prisoner of Azkaban. That's not how. And it was weird because I was quite the opposite of my mom. When I was young, I started boxing, and I started boxing at a competitive age. And when you start boxing at such a young age, competitively, you kind of have to be good at it. I was not. I got beat up a lot to the point I showed up to class, and my face was just bruised up. And I just lied to people because I didn't want to tell anybody I was a loser, So people would start asking me questions, and I wasn't very good at it. They'd be like, yo, why is your face all bruised up? I was like, I walked into a door. And a friend told me recently that after a while, everybody thought my parents were beating me. And it didn't help that after school, every day, my mom would pick me up with a broom in her hand. That didn't help at all. Actually, the reason I was in boxing was because my dad, growing up, he was a boxer. And I hated it because every time he'd make me come, sit in the front row, and as he's just beating the crap out of a dude, my dad would stop, look at me, and be like, "Peter, did you take out the trash?" I'm like, "I hope to God, man. I don't know why we're doing this here. Why?" My dad was such a psycho that when I was 10, a guy broke into our house, and I don't know if anybody's been a part of a home invasion on either side, but it was very, very jarring. Because he was at the bottom of the stairs, and we were at the top of the stairs. It was me, my mom, and my dad. And my mom's like, "I'm gonna call the police," and my dad's like, "No, wait. I got this." And my mom's like, "What do you mean by that?" And then my dad pulled out a baseball bat, which confused me and my mom because nobody in the household played that sport. Why do you have... But without answering the question, my dad jogged down the stairs to confront this guy, held the bat to him, and my dad's like, "Do you know whose house this is?" And the guy's like, "Nah, not really." And my dad's like, "This is the house of Jaswant Singh Saran the Jr." And my mom's just like, "Don't tell him your full fucking name. Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense." And again, my dad moved on to the next question, still holding the bat to this guy. My dad's like, do you have a weapon?" And the guy's answer was no, which wouldn't be my first move, you know? I'd lie at Mr. Bean and be like, "I got a gun in my pocket right now." But if my dad heard this, he's like, "Oh, you don't have a weapon? Well, you're gonna need one." And the guy was like, "Really?" And my dad just gave him the baseball bat, confused the shit out of everybody in the room, especially the guy who just broke into our house. He was so confused, he didn't know what to do. He just took the bat politely. He was like, "Oh, thank you." And my dad was like, "You're welcome." And then my dad beat the shit out of this guy to the point that me and my mom started cheering for the other guy. We're like, "Come on, hit back or something." Feels like my dad's now committing a crime. So after a while, I was like, "Dad, stop. I think he's had enough." So my dad picked this guy up and he put him on the couch. And my dad's like, "Yo, did you learn your lesson?" And this guy was like, "Yeah, don't rob you." And then my dad was like, "Good," and I go next door. He didn't even try to stop it. And that would usually be the end of that story. It wasn't. This guy my dad beat up showed up 4 years later on our front doorstep, knocked on our door. We opened it. My dad had beaten this guy up so badly that this man went out and got an education. This guy showed up with a diploma and gave that diploma to my dad and then acted like my dad was his dad. He was like, "Are you proud of me?" And to this day, I'm pissed because my dad's like, "Yeah, I'm proud of you." I'm like, "You've never said that to me, Dad." You guys have been dope. Thank you for coming out. I've been Peter Saran. Let's bring your host back up.
Great job, Peter.